up to the finish line. Who is it going to be? And it's Sean Perez who wins in Crescent.
Ty Fisher wins $1,000 in KA100 Junior.
Alex Stanfield played it perfectly here, told him to wait. Stanfield wins the Duffy in 2024 for TV Kart.
Amarillo Kart Complex is now the official distributor for TV Kart in the continental U.S. Become a dealer today.
Hey, what's up, Caleb?
What's up, Brandon?
You sound defeated. A long day at the office?
Yeah, got stuck at a cat food marketing meeting for like 3 hours. I don't know a thing about cat food, and I don't even work in marketing. And then I got sent on a coffee run like I was some sort of intern. Then at the end of the day, when I want to go get gas, I just realized everything is so darn expensive nowadays, man.
Yeah, you got that right.
Like, do you have any idea how much we're spending on Netflix?
That's like $20 a month.
Do you know how much we're spending on cable?
That's like $50 a month.
And you know what isn't expensive?
Tell me.
Kart Chaser Premium. For only $9.99 a month, you can watch all of the American karting action live from coast to coast. Subscribe and become a member today.
Paulie Massimino wins in KA. Paulie Massimino is a winner in OKN Stars.
Take your driving to the next level with one-on-one coaching from 2024 OKN Stars champion, Paulie Massimino. Kart rental options are available if you'd like to keep yours at home, and drivers in all classes are welcome, from Briggs 206 to Mini to KA100 and X30. With in-depth data analysis, onboard video footage review, and lead follow on-track sessions, each private coaching session will see you end as a more complete driver than when you started. Book your coaching session now.
This is Henry. Henry feels sad. Henry feels sad because it's time for his next big race and his go-kart is in bits. Henry doesn't know that Acceleration Kart Racing is the United States' #1 shop for all of your karting equipment needs. Henry also doesn't know that Acceleration Kart Racing can deliver anything from tires to race suits and even wheels directly to your front door or to the racetrack itself, quickly and efficiently, with tech support available 6 days a week. Poor Henry doesn't even know that Acceleration Kart Racing offers free shipping to mainland USA on selected product if you spend $200 or more. Do yourself a favor.
Across the MCC and across here, Batavia, Ohio. Weather conditions for those tuning in today, 53 degrees Fahrenheit. That's cloudy skies for today as well. It's expected to stay pretty cloudy throughout the afternoon. Brad, happy to have you with us here today and happy to be here at the racetrack. It should be a fun time to see how this season starts.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm excited to see how this runs here in Cincinnati here, the ProAM Karting Championship at MCC Cincinnati. This is going to be a long, hard day of racing. There's already hard racing going on track, Justin, and I'm excited just to see how that develops throughout the day. A warm-up, everyone seemed very comfortable, very confident, and I think as qualifying gets underway, as our pre-finals and finals go, things are going to continue to just sort of heat up, along with, as you said, the weather. I think it's going to be a good day all the way around.
It should be, absolutely. Hopefully expected to be pretty eventful when it comes to some of the racing today. Right now, it is the KA100 seniors that are in the midst of their warm-up session. Close things out at the moment. So it's going to be throughout the day qualifying to start things off. Then we go behind the paywall for the pre-finals and the finals. The pre-final and the finals expect to go from about noon all the way through to about 5:20, 5:30-ish today, a part of the schedule. So we have plenty of classes as well to keep in mind, Brad. This is going to be a busy day. When you look at the different classes, you have 206 Masters, 206 Junior, Cadet, Senior. Then you go to KA100s with the Masters and Juniors along with the Seniors. You also throw in the mix the Mini Swifts and the Micro Swifts, and of course a Pro Shifter class in the mix. There's a lot of classes that are going to be taking part in races throughout the day here and throughout this weekend.
Yeah, a lot of classes, a lot of variations, but the one common thing that I found here looking is all of them have very, very fast karts that are a lot of fun to watch. And I've been kind of watching to see exactly who is going to be doing what, where, and in terms of pace, I mean, across this almost 1 mile circuit, we're within about 10 to 12 seconds between all classes in terms of pace, which has been a lot of fun to watch and enjoy, because it's, you know, it's going to be fun, really, when you think about the fact that the age range that we have as well. Micro Swifts, age 7 to 10, going all the way up to the 206 Masters and the KA100 Masters, is ages 30 plus. So when you think about that wide variety, that everyone is running this track between about 58 seconds and a minute 8 to a minute 10, it's pretty amazing to see that variety throughout the entire weekend.
So at the moment, the KA seniors are finishing up their warm-up session. Will Steele is at the top of the board for this respective group. Carter Thompson, Jacob Petticord, along with Tyler Presto in the top 4. Those drivers are running 101.4s. Keep in mind today we're at the MCC's national layout. The national circuit is the one utilized for the big events. The big track has a lot of passing opportunities when you look at the track maps, especially when it comes to that middle portion of the circuit. There's a lot of opportunities for switchbacks, Brad. There's a lot of opportunities, too, in the later part of the course for some draft. There could be a fair amount of passes here today, depending on what happens amongst this course once we go racing in a bit.
Yeah, when you look through on the course layout, the main straight, you know, coming out of turn 16 right there, all the way down through turn 1 and 2, I think that's going to be a lot of following opportunity, a lot of drafting opportunity, which I can already see here in my head. I'm saying the drafting opportunity. I'm kind of thinking like, well, they're karts. Do they really draft that much? Yes, there is drafting that can come into play in karts. But the big passing opportunities I see through turn 6, 7, that's going to be a big moment. That is a nice little switchback right-hander. And then going through 12, 13, and 14, you've got this long, winding left-hander that kicks back to a right, back into a left, a real nice chicane. And I think that's going to add a lot of really good moments in as well. We're going to see a lot of people get brave and try to do some dives and some switchbacks through 13 and 14. It's going to make for a lot of competitive racing.
Yes, indeed, as all the drivers have moved off the racetrack, a part of the warm-up session. And now it's going to be the matter of getting things going for the qualifying portion of the show. It's time for 206 Master qualifying, and a lot of drivers now hitting the circuit to see how they shake out for this session. Alan Elwood led the way in a 13 kart taking part class for earlier today in the practice session. It's in the 1:10.8 in terms of pace. as well for those wondering how things went last season for this championship. Elwood did pick up the championship in a tie with TJ Pugh. He ended up getting the tiebreaker, Elwood did, in terms of that championship. 1,620 points apiece. Matthew Lida also in that conversation by the end of the championship by a few points within range. So we get things going for qualifying here, Brad. What's your mindset for getting a good qualifying lap when it comes to racing today?
My mindset going into this, it's the first round of the season, and it's set the pace early. It's get comfortable early, and it's be willing to be conservative and take risk at the same time. And what I mean by that is you're looking to make sure that you get good runs, you get good grid position, because that's going to be important. But also you need to be willing to send it through and really push your kart through and get laps in. That's going to be the most important thing, in my opinion, is to get that lap on the board as quickly as you can and just get things together. Maybe try to find a little bit of space. You see some karts that are giving themselves a little bit more room than others, and then it's all about just nail that lap. Get that one perfect lap that you can with the time allowed, and then it is what she wrote from there.
Indeed, and leading things off in this group is Elwood, the track champion now 2 times in regards to things. Also, it's a graphic designer when it comes to sim racing, in fact. Designs a lot of paint schemes when it comes to iRacing, in fact. So multifaceted as a driver and as a person when it comes to his creative side and in the race community. He's been a long-time expert in painting cars, in fact, when it comes to sim racing in particular. So we'll see how the times now fare out. He starts off with a 1:11.4s, 4/10 higher than AJ Roderick, but there's still 14 people in the queue. Matthew Lida also is a driver to keep in mind in that lineup, who's at the tail end of those who are in the qualifying order. He jumps up to 4th spot to start things off for the session.
Yeah, you said keep an eye on Matthew Lida, and you were not lying. That 10th-place jump there right off the jump into P4, and still plenty of time to improve. You got 2 minutes here, so enough time for 2 more laps to get put down around this track if you are feeling brave. Of course, no surprise to me here to see Alan Elwood, 2-time track champion, who is sending things through 1:11.4, up by 3.5 tenths. We'll continue to push things through, but AJ Roderick right behind on track, maybe going to try to learn a little bit here and say, you know, what's Alan doing that I can take from? What can I do to kind of chase a little bit, find a little bit of extra time, and really improve things through?
And mind you, there are some people in regards to qualifying that like to run on their own, you know, try and get into a rhythm themselves. Others, we see packs of drivers just grouping together and maintaining momentum around this racetrack. What's kind of your preference depending on the class? Do you prefer to have someone to chase after in a session like this? Or do you prefer to run on your lonesome and have that clean air, so to speak, to run on the track?
So I might be the reverse of this. So I am usually the one who prefers to be behind somebody chasing. I just find that it gives me a little bit more focus to say, all right, I need to run a little bit faster than the person in front, especially through a qualifying session. If I know I have a fast driver in front of me, I want to be AJ Roderick with Alan Elwood in front. Now, Matthew Lida is very clearly proving that you can run on your own and have a great time, because Matthew Lida is currently sitting 2nd place in the times with a 1:10.8, just a 10th and a half behind Alan Elwood. But I am the one who would want to be in the AJ Roderick seat. I want to be behind Alan Elwood. I know Alan's fast, and I want to sit there and I just want to follow and then just see how much more time I can find, what I can do, what little tips I can learn. Again, I'm probably backwards with that, as we have a kart that has went backwards through that turn 14, 15, 16 complex.
I believe that might have been Mike Doty based on the number plate, if I've seen that correctly. But here's how things are sorted out. Checker flag waving on the track already. Matthew Lida has taken the checker flag. That's the disadvantage of being as far back as he was. Alan Elwood is at top of the board with a 1:10.232. AJ Roderick is in second with the 1:10.289, 57 one-thousandths of a second within the pole time. Lina in third with the 1:10.4. Then it is Sean Kennedy in fourth at the moment. Matt Geist rounding up the top 5 in the session. So we'll see if there's any change on the board or if drivers just duck down the pit road, confident on their lap times here. And the answer is, we'll see if Elwood gets an improvement to close out. Yes, he does. No, it's Roderick who gets the improvement to the pole. 1:09.829, riding right up front. And the 56 machine takes away the pole from the two-time champion.
Right at the end, found that time. And Matt Geist there in the 5:31 cart was able to pull out P3 there in the end as well with a great improvement. So it goes to show, again, sometimes being that chasing cart is nice because you just get that last-second opportunity there to get things through. Alan Elwood, though, no, Alan Elwood's going to be fast. Two-time champion around this circuit, and it'll be interesting to see how the first round shakes out here when it's said when we get into pre-final here just a little bit later today.
So to recap how your top 5 looks, Roderick at the top of the board with a 1:09.8, and Alan Elwood put up a 1:10.1 at the end, his personal best, but not fast enough for the pole. Matt Geist in third, jumped up by a couple thousandths over Matthew Lina for fourth. Then Sean Kennedy rounds out the top 5. Chris Gorman in 6th. Adam Dargis in 7th with Drew Galloway in 8th. Todd Davis, Michael Wells, Austin Winter in 11th. Then Travis Finanzi in 12th. Rene Moore back in 13th. Mike Doty rounding out the field in 14th position out of those who took part in the session. Set to look top to bottom on how things just shook out for 206 Master. The qualifying portion of their session. Next on track soon will be the 206 Juniors. Those drivers were led by Layden Moll earlier today in their pace with a 1:11.988. I'd recline also something to keep in mind for that class as well. We've seen flashes of last season. Speaking of how things went for last campaign for some of those drivers in 206 Junior, it was Klein who picked up the championship with 1,431 points and a missed race in the mix of that as well, over Lina Beck, who missed a race as well to start the season, but did not score a single round more than 260 points, compared to Klein, scoring multiple 300-point days on the way to the championship.
Looking through here, this is going to be a fun one for me because we go from the Masters, which is those 30-plus age drivers, 390-pound carts, and we're stepping down to the 12 to 15-year-olds with 320-pound carts. This is going to be fun to kind of see the difference. You're going to see a little bit more speed come out here as well, I believe, and this is going to be fun to kind of watch and see where the difference in pace goes. That Masters qualifying field was separated by almost 4 seconds top to bottom. Junior category here should be a little bit closer of a field. We'll see who can come out on top in the end.
Yes, indeed. So, looks like we had one kart that had some issues going at the end of the racetrack. That's why we're a bit delayed here. Now they're getting the green flag command to go for our other class here as one of the Masters makes their way off the racetrack. Those drivers now getting the command to roll out of the pit lane and onto the circuit now. So overall, 11 drivers took part in the warm-up session. Should be interesting what we have happened here today with those drivers. So, getting all set to go for today with these drivers. So, Moll Racing will start things up at the front. Driver with Cooper, Layden Moll, part of their team when it comes to their speed. They're the drivers that led the session. Layden, about 13, 14 years old with experience as well in the CKNA Spring Nationals, in particular Charlotte winning back in 2023, Layden did. So there's a lot of expectations with some of the drivers at the national level looking to get things fine-tuned here in Cincinnati here today.
Yeah, this is the fun thing with Cincinnati kind of being its own little hub of a championship. You know, you run 2 rounds every other month going through the year. It's a very, very, I would say, good track, too, to kind of hone the skills in and go through. If you're local here, you know, this track is only about an hour, hour and a half from me, give or take, depending on traffic, of course. This would be a fun one, especially for me, someone who is not as well versed behind the wheel of a kart, to be able to sit down and sort of fine-tune the skills. And any driver who has a big national presence and is looking to do big national racing, this is a fun track sometimes just to come home and kind of sit down and run and push and get comfortable at, and not have, you know, as much pressure, be close to home, be able to enjoy things and go through. It really just depends on how you're feeling. I like this battle up front already that we have going on up with the 2 karts that have started things off, the 821 there and the 9. They are both very much right on each other's, just close tit for tat, going back and forth and not giving any breathing room here. And I'm curious to see what sort of times come out for these 2 karts.
Yeah, a little pushing when it comes to what they're showing right now. Jacob Snyder leading the way, also an air driver with the National Karting Experience, a one-time Ohio State champion, leading this pack and this field around the racetrack. Then you have Jacob Schneibel, who is the one working with them at the moment. Looks like Schneibel wanting a leapfrog, in fact, as they come across the stripe. First time around, Adler Klein is the one who sets a faster time on the board, though. Adler Klein with a 1:12.5. Schneibel in the midst of that pass, jumped to second. Snyder was in 4th. So Kyler Cheatham is the one in between the 2 of them at the moment on the board as they make their way around the racetrack. And sometimes people will make those leapfrog attempts if they feel like they're going to be faster in the long run.
Yeah, and really having that feel of being, I'm the faster kart, get out of my way, it's a feeling. It's just, you know, in the seat behind the wheel if you are truly the faster kart or not. But then you have moments like this as we run down into this back end section of the track, going toward turn 12 here, the long sweeping left, 13, the hairpin left, back into the hairpin right of 14, where you get that draft. If you're the kart behind, you get that little bit of extra push and pull through that you may think and say, you know what, maybe it's worth it to be the kart behind and be a little bit faster. We'll see here on this second run who is actually a faster kart, and we see things flip around yet again. Kyler Cheatham into 3rd, Richard into 2nd, and Adler Klein there into 1st. And none of these are the karts up front we see battling back and forth the way they are. And again, this is still just qualifying.
Yeah, right now Adler Klein backing up that championship pace from last season when it comes to his speed. It's going to be interesting to see how this season fares out overall. Adler Klein, many times a race winner, as touched upon in 2024. As well, talking about some of the other drivers, Bull is currently holding on to the 6th spot, moved up 4 spots last time by in the running order. See if there's any change. Bull is amongst the drivers way far back in the running order by half a track, mind you, compared to those leading the way around this circuit. They have 30 seconds left on the board. There's enough time, looks like, for many of these drivers to go one more time around, be able to try and improve on their circuits here. So, down to 15 seconds on the board, this time by Klein, improves again, 1:10.8. William Richard specifically, goes up to 2nd on the board.
And Kyler Cheatham still holding 3rd there. Tegan Schneider and Jacob Scheibel still 4th and 5th. They flip-flop positions there that final time. So this will be the moment where things really have to count. Does anyone feel like they have more time, or are they going to just peel right on in and be done with it? Again, these front 3 still continuing to push and find time, and curious to see if that 33 there of Klein feels like he has any more time there in the kart to bring onto the table here for the final push as we watch them run down this long backstretch yet again, heading down towards turns 12, 13, 14. This is easily going to be my favorite part of the track all day. The passing opportunities we talked about at the top of the broadcast, this is where the real passing opportunities I feel are going to be.
So it looks like they'll come across the stripe here. Half the field has already taken the checker flag for their sessions here. This time around, many of them keeping aerodynamic as William Richard steals away the pole. Richard top of the board by 3/10 on the final time around. Klein jumps around at second. Cheatham in third. Tegan Snyder and Jacob Schnabel in the top 5. Richard with a big jump to the top of the board to end off their session here.
Talk about saving the best for last. William Richard, hands down, take a bow. That was a great decision there. And you see he was 4th in the line. And the other thing that caught me out for William Richard was just how much of a tuck he took there through turn 16 down the main stretch. I mean, just completely stuck the head against the steering wheel and sent it through. That was leaving nothing on the table, and it'll be interesting to see when the other drivers go back into the paddock area and they kind of look and they go, man, where did 3/10 come from William Richard there against Adler Klein and Kyler Cheatham, as they all are going to peel into the pits here, and junior qualifying will be done and dusted.
Mind you, it was Richard who picked up a photo finish victory that made its way on the rounds. Kart Chaser Kids just last year. And that was a fun one with Edward Clokier, who finished up by less than an inch in terms of the race distance to come away with the checker flag. So once again, your running order: William Richard setting the pole in juniors for 206s. Klein in second, Cheatham and Snyder and Steibel in the top 5. Elaine and Mole, who led the way in practice, finished off at 6th. Then Zeo Maxey in 7th. Cooper Mole in 8th. Kingston Batham inside the top 10 also. So drivers are already getting ready for next group. The Cadets will hit the track next for their session. Mind you, the Cadets is a small class. It's worth noting here today and throughout this weekend. Drew Snyder, Hayden Lawson, and Colton Hoops, those entries for the class. Just those 3 karts you see lined up there gonna take part, but it's still a racing experience that's gonna be critical for them in the long run to learn about Brad.
Yeah, as you look here, I mean, you think about the 206 Cadets. I mean, they're 7 to 12-year-old racers just getting into racing as it stands. They're not running in Micro Swift, so they're going to be running this sort of mix. This gives them the experience as the number 32 kart is still running out and about there from the 206 category. Just took an extra lap for fun, possibly. That is going to be running around. And, you know, looking at this cadet class, this is my favorite class, I would have to say, on the day, because I don't know what it is. It's just, I absolutely enjoy seeing the small karts running through, because again, you look at that age range and it ages 7 to 12 and they're fast. They're good, they're fast, and it's all experience all the way through. Even if it is just a few karts, I mean, you're still getting experience on track and learning what you're doing in terms of racing before you move forward.
Absolutely. So the green lights are blinking around the racetrack. Looks like they're just about all sorted here. And we are underway for qualifying for the Cadets. How did things go last season when it came to Cadets? Well, that was the class William Richard picked up championship in. We've got a crash already. One driver off the racetrack. And not a great start for one of those 3 competitors here. That is Snyder. That's off the racetrack. Was a championship threat last season.
Not at all what you want to see here, kicking off your round 1 here, your race season even, not just your race weekend. This is your race season that is being kicked off, and not at all how you want to start things there in the weekend for that number 11. That'll leave the 10 and the 72 running around solo at the moment. Lots of space between them. So it seems like drivers really leaving that room on purpose to get comfortable and get some pace in. We know all of these drivers are going to be pretty quick here. Warm-up times were around a 1:13.6, and Hayden Lawson had a 1:13.9, so should be fairly close gaps as we go through this section of qualifying.
Now keep in mind, Richard picked up the championship.
Great sections of track to really learn. Again, my favorite section of the track, I'm going to talk about this today and tomorrow constantly, but this turn 12, 13, 14 complex here, this wonderful long left-hander into the switchback left-right chicane setup. I really like this section of track because it teaches you that you have to have that patience through 12 and set up 13 and 14 correctly. Otherwise, you compromise the entire run all the way to turn 2 right there. So if you mess up turns 12, 13, 14, you ruin a large section of the lap. But then also, you hit this section through turns 4, 5, 6, all the way through turn 11, and it's kind of, I like to call it twisty bits. It's kind of a little bit of back, a little bit of forth. You have to spot your apexes and really nail things right, and you have to know how to give and take through curves to set things up, and then also mind your hairpin at 7, 4, and then the square left at 11. You have to really sort of know how to give and take from the track to find the most time, and that is something that MCC really has set up well, and this track helps sort of practice. It's not a super impossible track to learn, but it is a very hard track to master.
Mind you, keep in mind, some of these drivers with experience across the nation once again. Talk about Hayden Lawson, who is at the top of the board, for example, the 1:14.6. He's got experience when it comes to CKNA racing in the past few months in particular. Showed some big speed at Daytona Kart Week over the years as well. If you look at how he's performed as far back as the winter time last year. So you have some drivers that have shown some good ability at the national level here. We have Drew Snyder also, that's been one of the more consistent drivers when it comes to competing in this championship, who is back here looking for more for the championship itself. So obviously this is going to be one of your calm classes. There's a couple classes going to be like this on the schedule, Brad, where there's smaller car counts. It's all about the fun. What goes in the mindset when you only have a couple of your fellow buddies to race against, like you have today in this class, and what we'll see in one or two of the other classes, I think, today?
Yeah, what you get in a situation like this when it's just, 2 or 3 karts is you find a lot of friendship in this group. You find people that are very much enjoying it, and they tend to work with each other, not against each other as much. You tend to have drivers that, they jump in the cart and they know everyone's kind of friendly. It's still a competition, don't get me wrong. Like, everyone is still racing as the checkered flag is falling on this session. Everyone's still racing as you go through. But, if you have Hayden Lawson, take, for example, a 1:12.1, currently the fastest lap. Colton Hoops in third, who is a little bit down on pace, might go to Hayden and say, hey, where's that pace from? And they're going to be more inept to share that and kind of talk. There's a lot of, everyone wants to improve together, and a lot less of what you might see in large classes where there's a lot of competition, where everyone is really battling. They're very, very conservative in the information they share, and everyone knows that this is for fun, this is for learning and improvement, and everyone just wants to get the most they can out of
group. They will wrap things up, part of this portion of the session here. So as these drivers continue on with the festivities here at MCC Cincinnati, why don't we take a quick step aside? When we come back, more racing action continuing on. Qualifying continues with 206 Senior heading the track in a moment.
Brandon, why are there all these charges for just over $200?
I'm tired of all this Brandon business, okay? Brandon this, Brandon that. Why are there all these expenses on AKR over $200? We know, okay? Take a walk with me. At Shop AKR, they have everything you need to start racing at a very cheap and affordable price. They have MXC rims, they got chains, electrical stands, tilt seats. They got MXCs, and if you didn't know, on top of that, any purchase in the continental U.S. over $200, that's free shipping.
Hey, aren't you supposed to be in the AKR Anonymous meeting over there?
Dude, I'm doing a commercial.
Dude, we have no time. It's about to start.
Stop. We all love Shop AKR. Me? More than others. What do I get at Shop AKR?
MXC rims.
Kyle, what are you doing?
It's got my new Greyhound seat.
You don't even have a cart.
Doesn't matter. I have a Greyhound.
Who the f is Kyle Cuthbertson? Doesn't even have a go-kart.
Doesn't matter.
Cuthbertson through on Turney. Turney in the dirt.
Last season, it was Ben Lyda who picked up the championship by a couple hundred points over Nolan Holiday. After the drop rounds were calculated in, Brendan Heber rounded out the top three with Evans, Colin Evans, and Shane Hambrick in the top 5 in 2024. So we're underway for today's action. It should be interesting to see how things fare out in this class. A lot of competitors in 206 Senior today, Brad.
Yeah, 11 carts that I see at minimum going here through 206 Senior. 26 carts took place last season in this championship. 206 Senior, 15 years or older in age with a 365-pound weight. This is going to be a class that you see a lot of competition, a lot of names that are recognized both locally and nationally that give a lot of challenge. There's going to be a lot of hard pushing going all the way through, and this is the total opposite of what we just watched here, Justin. This is where the competition comes in and everybody wants to win, and even though everyone's going to be friendly, once you put the helmet on, you get that car out of the grid and onto the track, nobody is a friend in the end. It's all about who can really push and get that win through. And I think this is going to be really one of the classes on the weekend where we see the fireworks fly.
Brendan Heber in particular is going to be someone to keep an eye on. He's the top of the board at the moment in this group. He races a fair bit in the region when you talk about him, because he's the owner of Dark Side Racing, for example. Also is somebody that we see at K1 Circuit Whiteland, which is also somewhat close by when you think about it mathematically in terms of the vicinity of things. So he races a lot and usually wins a lot in that number 8 plate. One 110, 109, top of the board for now. So he's got a lot of confidence behind that wheel of the machine up at the front of the board with how things are looking so far. AJ Roderick, though, going to be one of the drivers running multiple classes we've seen here today already.
Yeah, and those multiple class runners, I will say, are going to have a good advantage on the weekend than other drivers who are maybe just running their one class. And it can go both ways, I will say that. But I think if the more experience you get on this track, to learn the track, learn the racing line, and get comfortable, the better it is. But the inverse to that is that you're getting used to multiple karts at the same time. So if not all karts drive the same, and if you prefer the way one kart drives to the other, and you catch yourself maybe making mistakes, and it can cost you both ways. Look at the head tuck there coming down for the number 8 of Braden Heber as he goes through and improves on his last time, 109.6, a 109.9 for AJ Roderick there, 3/10 back. So the 8 and the 56 still trying to improve, and Brandon Helton jumps it up into 3rd.
Not bad at all. Roderick, mind you, someone that actually has its own racing development program in the region that helps out various drivers in the area. Also has its own karting shop. When you look at some of the specs, it's also picked up a litany of drivers in other classes. Part of the roster we'll see throughout the races, hopefully in the next little bit here. So we'll keep an eye on things as the checker flag waves in the session. We're still the kart we're keeping an eye on at the front of the field. Is he able to hold on to the pole? We've seen changes on the final lap every session essentially so far today. That'd be continuous in terms of that momentum change. One of the drivers on the front straightaway crossing the stripe. Heber now crosses on his own. 109.5s. Good thing he did improve because Roderick in the second part of the line jumped to P2 still. Addison Iannello in 3rd in the 110 flats over Brandon Helton and Wyatt Deegan rounding out the top 5. Ben Lida finishing down in 6th, Brad.
Yeah, Heber there very, very lucky. Just half a tenth of a second back was Roderick. So if Heber hadn't have found a little bit more time on that final flying lap, the final hoorah, sending it through, AJ Roderick would have been up on pole. It's always interesting to me to watch the karts because you think of qualifying in other series and, other things that are more, watched, I'm going to say like NASCAR, Formula One, IndyCar, and it's always just that flying lap, that one and done lap. But here in karting, it is that workup, it's that run up that actually gets those lap times in. So it's never going to be the first lap that's the best. You always see karts improve throughout the 5-minute session.
Absolutely. You see that full running order on the list. Mitchell Lowry up north in 7th. You have Garrett Hagerman in 8th. Then you have Smith in 9th and Revo Perkins rounding out the top 10. One driver not listed there is Tanner Gorman. He finished 6 seconds back of the next kart, though, in the 11th position. Let's look top to bottom at 206 Senior. How they qualified here today. Our next driver is getting all set to go in the box. And now we get ready to switch things up a little bit to the KA100s. We go KA100 Master qualifying, where the Masters earlier on today, led by Chris Kutcher. The Kutcher brothers are so notable when it comes to the racing prowess here. They were near dead even, Brad, in the practice session. They had a near 2-second advantage, the 279 and 299 did in that session. We've seen lots of battles with those two in 2024.
That we did. Of course, Andy besting Chris, the 299 over the 279 last year, and I'm sure that they're going to be looking to flip-flop that if they can. Chris will want to get the best of Andy as they go through. These two are going to be very, very quick on the weekend, so I'm just going to be keeping my eyes really, on those two, but I'm going to keep those two kind of in one eyeball and then everyone else in another, because here's the thing, that's the competition here in this class as they go through 390-pound karts as they go through. And of course, this is going to be everyone age 30 and up. So you're going to be watching all of these drivers go very, very quick. They're going to be very skilled, and somebody's going to have to get ahead of them somewhere. It's just the question of who could do it.
So you have the Kutchers in the field. You have Damian Jennings, Neil Hamilton, Greg Leahy, Paul Meese rounding out the drivers currently on the racetrack at the moment. So we'll see how they get sorted here. Damian Jennings, one of the returning drivers, finished last season 4th in the championship running order. Finished within 305 points of the eventual champion Andy at the top of the board. How do you distinctly tell these two apart? Well, Andy's the one with the race suit in the white in line. It's Chris who's wearing the black today. In terms of the racing outfits up at the front of the field. So, we'll get the edge to start things off for this qualifying session. Well, the answer is going to be Andy in the 102.8s to start. They are 3 seconds clear of the rest of the field.
They set out on a mission showing up today. As they came out, they just very quickly said, you know what, we're just gonna kind of stamp the brick and say, hey, 2025, we're coming back again. Andy ahead of Chris by 1/10 coming through. We'll see how long that sticks through. Chris might have something up his sleeve there running behind Andy, and see there's something else. Greg Lee there in the 2:25, I would also keep my eyes on, because again, I don't think the first lap from a kart is the fastest lap. I think every time we see these karts come through, there's more to find, there's more to give. And as the session goes throughout these qualifying sessions, 2 minutes to go, still plenty of time to put in laps and see somebody improve here.
So same change, Andy over Chris. Will there be a change on the board? Well, the answer is this time by. It was close, but it's still a 1/10 of a second advantage. Andy in particular is also a Porsche Club national driving instructor, on top of being now a karting champion, so he's got a fair bit of racing experience outside of just the karting scene. Then you have Chris raced a lot on his kart. When you look at some of the specs, that's raced a lot in the Ohio Valley Karting Association on top of things. As well, taking part recently in one of the trade shows and swap meets earlier on in the springtime in terms of the racing scene. Looks like Andy's built up a small buffer now with what they've been able to do to close things out in the next lap or two for their qualifying session. A lot of rubber buildup already on the racetrack. You've already seen, Brad. Lots of tire buildup and rubber buildup in the midst of those corners, and we're not even at 11 a.m. yet as Andy bumps up the time an hour, a couple tenths.
Man, I love seeing these karts continue to go through. You mentioned kind of the rubber buildup that's coming in. And the big thing that I will mention with that is to remember that, you know, here at MCC, there was also a test day yesterday and a practice day from 1 to 7 p.m. that allowed everyone to go through. And of course, we had our warm-ups this morning, starting with a 9 a.m. session, going all the way through. So lots of racing has been done here. There was test and tune earlier in the month, back on April 5th and 6th. So there's still lots of running that happens here at MCC, even when they're not running this Pro-Am karting championship events on the weekends. But it's still gonna be important to watch that rubber lay down from those NG Racing tires as they run through, because as they go, that is going to help improve speed, improve time over. And Chris, again, less than 1/10 behind Andy, and Andy will take pole here in Masters qualifying.
Andy Kutcher at the top of the board, Chris Kutcher in second. The rest of the drivers, fair bit back, but did improve. Damian Jennings finishes off in third in the 102.9s. Neil Hamilton, Greg Leahy. Paul Meese is still a fair bit back from the rest of the field. Coming across in the final corner right now to close out this session for these drivers and put himself higher than Leahy and into the top 5 to round out the qualifying group. So, K100 Master finished up in their qualifying pack. Your thoughts on the action so far here, Brad, as we still have a fair amount of qualifying left to go.
So I think the big thing for me here looking at Masters qualifying specifically is the fact that Chris outdid Andy in the warm-up and Andy outdid Chris in qualifying. Those two are going to be the ones to watch, but again, I still think there's plenty of pace to the field. Everyone seems confident coming into the weekend. That's the one thing I noticed. For this being the first round of the season, there's nobody that sticks out to me as not being comfortable and being ready to run and being ready to go. Everyone here that has showed up is giving their best and really pushing things forward, which is making things really fun, and I think will really kind of mix things up throughout the weekend. Of course, we have those drivers we know that are fast, but I think there's going to be some names that we talk about at the end of the day tomorrow that shock us both, Justin.
I think there's some potential as well in some of the classes that we might see a lot of great battling here, but at the moment, it's a good time to remind you that later on today, after we're done qualifying and a bit of a break, we'll be going behind the paywall. Remember to subscribe and join the membership club if you want to keep an eye on the racing action here from MCC Cincinnati once we go behind the paywall in a little bit. We still have a grand total of 4 classes to qualify as soon as the rest of the Masters make their way off the racetrack. It's KA100 Junior that's going to be next up in your order. You have Homer Heeman, who led the way in final practice. Nico Katowski, lots of national experience in second. Adler Klein finished the session third. Kyle Cheesem, Josiah Phillips, Alex Kutcher in 6. Robert Lash. Then you have Alejandro Gallego, should say. Lowell Beck rounded out the running order in those who took part in the warm-up session. And as well, for those wondering how did things go, K100 Juniors sessions last year, Homer Heeman finished up as the champion by more than 100 points over Adler Klein, looking to back up that championship speed in 2025.
Would not surprise me to see the championship speed continue, but again, as I said, I do think there is the possibility of a new champion in every class as we go. We'll see what happens here, and for those of you curious about what the junior class is, because I was really curious about K100 Juniors, this is 12 to 15-year-old drivers, 320-pound karts, lots of speed to be found, lots of competitiveness, and somebody might want to remind them that this is qualifying, because I tell you what, this junior class is always where I think we're going to see the biggest bang for the buck here as they push and go through, because you can see coming around there almost side by side, they went down into turn 2, and again, this is still just qualifying, but if you think you're the faster kart, you're going to want to be ahead. You're going to want to leapfrog to try to get a little bit more time out of that kart if you can. You don't want to be stuck behind someone that compromises your qualifying run.
Yeah, that's going to be important here, but leading things off in this group is Nico Katowski. We've seen a fair bit of Nico Katowski at the national scene when it comes to his racing. We've seen the Katowskis, in fact, race a fair bit. He's getting past, in fact, to start things off. That making the move there was Adler Klein. Klein has a heater going, and he wants clean air to be able to lead this field. He does not want to ride in the drafting train. Up at the top of the board, Robert Lash starts things off with the 104.7s.
What's really interesting, though, when you think about it here, Justin, is the fact that if these three are going to race this hard in qualifying, they're really doing nothing but costing each other time. So that's why Robert Lash is able to jump up by 0.3 of a second up to a second from Nico Katowski, is the fact that Robert Lash is just absolutely running clean air, running through and not trying to fight around someone else. But the thing is, of course, as I said, if you think you're the fastest kart, you're going to be going through. And of course, Homer Heeman is up into first with a 1:03.1, 1.6 seconds up. And there's the 8.97 of Josiah Phillips off into a wall.
Phillips trying to pull it out from the mud right now in what is a very cloudy day. Still working to get that cart away and seems to be struggling to get it pulled across the grass. You can see a lot of work being put in by Phillips. Try and get it going. This time around, Heeman stays at the top of the board. Heeman over Nico Kotelski by a full second. That time by. Still a couple more laps to go in the session.
Just enough time to bring a bit more time through, and I do think that this group up front that are battling are going to just need to focus a little bit more on less battle, more pace, but it's easy for me to say that in the booth. Let's be honest, Justin. You and me can always say, hey, here's what the drivers should do, but the drivers, they're the ones in the seat. They're going to do what the drivers do. And sometimes it's fun to have a little bit of a battle here and there, even when it is in qualifying, because, of course, qualifying just sets the grid. It doesn't really determine who's going to finish where at the end of the day. So as we watch them continue through, I mean, they're going to continue a little bit of a battle, but if they feel like they have really good race pace and really good racecraft, maybe it's worth it here in qualifying to just sort of get into the head of somebody and really, push through, give a bit of a challenge here in what will be one of our very competitive classes here on the weekend.
So right now, seeing some of these air droppers and their separations, we look around the circuit. What will happen this time on the lap chart? That's the 834. That is Heeman, defending champion for this class, looking to finish out strong in this session. Right now still is 7/10 up for the rest of the field, despite being on the other end of the racetrack much of the session. No improvement that time by in terms of the lap counter. Keep an eye and see if the others, as they zip around, make any changes on the other side of the circuit coming up here. So checker flag coming up in the session. In fact, checker flag now displayed across the timing boards here at the circuit. Now it's going to be the sprint to see if there's any major changes once they come across the stripe here.
Yeah, 833 and 892 currently coming across the line there. Klein and Kotelski, along with Robert Lash jumping up into second place there. And Jacob Schabel, that 821, jumping into fourth. We'll see if Heeman can find any more time through, but really doesn't need to. Is up by 3.5 tenths on everyone at the moment. Looks very comfortable here in that 834. Will bring it across the line one last time. Is there any more time in that 834 to be found? It's a 101.7, nearly 9 tenths of a second up on Robert Lash. So very clearly the defending champion putting a statement out early here on the 2025 season.
Yes, indeed. That should just about close up that part of the qualifying for the KA100 juniors now. Leave us with 3 qualifying groups left to go before we go behind the paywall for the noon start time, give or take, for those pre-finals. So, once again, your running order, Heeman setting the pole time. Put up a 101.7 on his own. See him zipping around the track to make his way to pit road, 8 tenths up over that whole pack of carts. Robert Lash finished off in second in the section. He was able to get the edge, as mentioned, over Admiral Klein towards the end of that group. You also have Jacob Schabel, who finished up in the 4th spot, Nico Kotelski in the top 5. So the calm track for the time being as the rest of the drivers make their way off the circuit. Alex Kutcher, of note, also set times all back in. Alejandro, there we go. You had Cheatham and Phillips, who did not set times in that part of the session. So our next pack of drivers all getting ready for the command to go here. Once they get the word to go, these drivers are going to be your mini and micro Swifts that are set to go a dual class here, Brad, with a fair bit of drivers, 2 classes in one.
Yeah, I love combining mini and micro Swifts through. Of course, micro Swifts 7 to 10 and mini Swifts ages 9 to 12. Only about 20-pound difference between the carts. 225-pound micro and 245 mini. You tend to see very good racing come through between minis and micros. Even though it is that mixed grid setup with the 2 separate classes at once, you still see really good racing all the way around as they go through. And warm-ups this morning were very similar in pace for those that ran extended sessions. Jackson Frank in the 142 ran about 5 minutes of time in warm-up and was able to put in a 107. And then Jack Katowski in the micro was able to put in a 108.1. Everyone else not really putting in competitive time. So only 6 karts will be here, 2 minis, 4 micros, but it should be very, very good running here for the day.
They get the green light to go this time around, and we're all set to go for their qualifying group once again. So now we see how they fare out for their session. So once again, to recap on how things went last season, it was Drake Williamson who picked up the micro championship by just 40 points with the drop round included over Wyatt Huntsbarger. Jackson Frank, Drew Snyder, and Jack Katowski were the rest of the runner. Jack Katowski only took part half the season though. Had 2 300 round days. That was tied for the most points picked up in a round throughout the season. Many of the top teams only went to the 290s throughout the season in the micros. In the minis, Robert Lash was the last season's champion by about, give or take, 35 points over Ben Gloverman. Now, we have, obviously in this class, with a lot of people moving up, a lot of opportunities for those new champions you were talking about before. So, off and away we go. Some drivers already looking to tango and battle as they start around the racetrack to begin their lap times.
Yeah, and as we watch them battle here, that is our minis that are going through just right there with each other, following through. And again, this is going to be one of those situations that we watch where it's, you know, a small class, even though it is mixed, it's smaller group, and you're going to see the drivers, you know, be more willing and friendly with each other, I'd say. And this is going to be more fun, more learning, more opportunity. Again, that age range. This is the part that always shocks me in karting. The age range between both classes is 7 to 12, 7 to 10 or 9 to 12, depending if you're micro or mini. And that is where you see things really surprising, because these drivers, yes, they're going to be competing, yes, they're competitive, but they're also still learning at the same time, learning that racecraft, learning what the best options are at times, learning tracks, learning their karts. So you'll see them take different lines, do different things like we just saw right there. You know, different lines through that beautiful, fun little turn 12 through 14 complex. And they'll tend to kind of follow each other, race each other, but they'll be more willing to work with each other and kind of have fun, even though they are still racing and being competitive. It's a fun little balance of a game that you'll find.
Jackson Frank sets the top of the board for this session so far in the 108.9s. May have something going on with the transponder with the second card of the pack. Did not see anything flip with the switch there for that machine in the backdrop. So we'll have to keep an eye and see if there's going to be any changes there. That is the 92. That's supposed to be back there in Jack Katowski. That looks like in one of the micros that's hanging up in there. So Jackson Frank so far leading things through the overall portion of the session. When it comes to Jackson Frank, experience when it comes to racing US PKS competition. Also lots of national experience in general. His car, once again, one of the many that you're going to have in that category. As there's Bethany Richards crossing the stripe. Less than 2 minutes to go in this group. Will there be any change for Frank? Yes, there's an improvement. And now Jack Katowski is at the top of the pylon. It's within a couple thousandths of a second. Within 47 one-thousandths in particular. It's close up front between the mini and micro pole sitters.
It does not surprise me either to see the gap that competitive between mini and micro. Again, these classes are very similar. There's lots of pace all the way through to be found. So it's going to come down really to just who can put together the better lap as we go through. Only about a minute left to go here when they come down and around. And, well, a minute is just enough time to really try to put in 2 more laps that are very competitive through. And you see just sticking behind each other here, trying to find just enough time as they head down towards that right turn 12 through 14 complex. Come through, run it wide through 12, set yourself up well for 13, deep into 13, and then just compromise a little bit so you can get a good run out of 14, run it all the way down the line. It seems like the 92 there of Katowski maybe a little bit better run than Frank that time through. So we'll see between the two who gets the better time this time since they're so close, and, well, they stick right where they're at, about 2/10 separating them now.
Yeah, an improvement for Frank, no improvement for Katowski. They stay stagnant on the board. Drew Snyder ends up not improving as well on the timing sheets as the rest of the field comes across just 2 minis today and 4 micros taking part in qualifying when you break it down here. So we might see what could be some good battling, in particular for some of the micro drivers. We might see the potential of the mini and micro drivers in general trying to battle up for the overall lead if possible. Looks like they'll reach some lap traffic here. Oh, and lap traffic choosing the middle of the racetrack. That's a little bit difficult of a spot to reach the traffic. That held them both up potentially there. That was Heeman. Griff in particular having some issues there in 12, 13, and 14 as they take the checker flag here.
Yeah, Griff seems a bit off the pace here, all things considered, in that micro kart coming through. Griff now taking the checkered flag. Frank ahead of Katowski in the end. So it is the mini against the micro as they go through. But we'll see how that plays out in the race. Griff off the pace a little bit there. Best lap of 1:23.9. So Griff Heeman, plenty of pace to be found through the end. Checkered flag has been taken by everyone but Bethany Richards in that number 13 car, who is now coming out of the final corner.
So not a bad session at all as we continue to breeze on through. Just 5 minutes qualifying, mind you, for each of these groups here today. Richards just seen does finish out qualifying session in this pack. So we'll clear the track once again of the minis and the micros. They raise the hand to indicate they're going to go down pit road here for their service. So once again, the 6 drivers all set and finished in this pack. That will bring next up the Pro Shifters. You can see the indication the Pro Shifters could put on a great show here. Of course, the shifter carts, a different type of beast when it comes to the racing they can provide here, Brad. We'll have to see how they perform here today as they battle through the gears.
Shifter carts are terrifying to me personally. They are carts that can put on absolute shows or be purely terrifying. They have pace that I cannot explain. I mean, if you look at Warmup, Ocasio, that number 214, had an average speed of 51 miles an hour around this track. That's an average speed across an almost mile circuit of basically the standard highway speed through most roads in the US. 51 miles an hour. Can you imagine ripping this track at 51 miles an hour? Most of our other classes are running about 35 to 40 miles an hour, but these shifters, and they're another beast. There's something different entirely. They can be the fastest things, they can be the scariest things, but they're going to give us probably some of the closest racing of the weekend.
They'll hit the racetrack here this time around. As mentioned, Ocasio, up-and-coming shifter kart sprint racer, has raced for a couple of years, the 2023 ROK Stars champion. Now part of the drivers in the Magic Kart roster, will be a part of this field on the racetrack. Also of note, Charlie Steins is in the area here today. He was third in final practice, and Charlie Steins, another one of the drivers who races a fair bit in the national scene. That has been considered a breakout star, in fact, at the national level. Driver, GP Racing Karts. That's coming off some action in the SCUSA Pro Tour in Houston a couple weeks ago, where he was a top 5 runner in the SCUSA Pro Tour out in Texas.
so awesome to see drivers that are nationally recognized be here in Cincinnati racing. It's so much fun to see drivers, not just always running the big national events. Sometimes you want to step back and kind of do something a little bit more local, a little bit more personal, and kind of do something, again, just more different than always chasing those national runs time after time after time. So as we go through here and we get this shifter qualifying underway, this is where things are going to really get wild for me. This is where I'm kind of going to shield my eyes because, again, this can be some of the hardest racing. But if something happens to any of these karts and they don't have the most ideal qualifying, dip a tire off the track, whatever it might be, it can be the most scary of times because these are the karts that really push the boundaries of what's possible.
You also have Nikolai Dukov. That's also someone to keep an eye on. He was within 6/100ths of a second of the top of the board in the session. Dukov with some experience as well in SCUSA Super Nationals competition for Trinity Karting Group, which is, of course, a local track for these competitors here at the facility. So we're underway in the session. Already, speed heading amongst the drivers. Oh! Did you see that also?
I did. I'm not sure who that was, but right off the side, through the water, into the wall. I'm not going to claim a commentator's curse for that because I did say that if any drivers have a moment, it looks like thankfully away and okay. And oh, there's another kart sliding. Oh. What has happened here? That's turn one.
Two drivers have slid off in turn one all of a sudden. Can't tell the numbers, but it looks like it's one of the magic karts. That is going to be a tough break, to say the very least. That's Ocasio, I believe. That may have been one of the two that may have had some troubles here as we are off to a wild start for this session.
I don't know if something's leaked on the track or what happened, but you can see down there the motion, the hand down, the watch out, slow down going through. Two karts already off turn one. Not sure what's happening, and you can see that, well, that just spells disaster already. But meanwhile, coming through turn 12, we've got karts trying to race. That's the number 4 of Asher Ferris, and I believe that is going to be, can't tell who the other kart is right off the top of my head, but I think it's Fred Robertson, the 93. Two karts off into turn one. Shifter kart's just having an absolute chaotic of a time.
Can confirm, just got the confirmation Ocasio was one of the two in his magic kart that went off the racetrack. Charlie Steins is at the top of the board now with the 84 machine. And now has that advantage by upwards of a second. That's going to really shake things up for the pre-final and the final to see one of your top drivers coming in on speed who is going to be really down the running order. Tepakatic the third. In second at the moment, Dukov in third, Jeff Lyda currently rounding things up. Ethan Langley was the other driver, by the way, that ended up in the wall, Brad, to start off this session. Langley will likely start 13th.
Yeah, Langley didn't even get a lap time in, and I tell you what, you want to spell disaster for everyone on the session. I mean, think about this. You watch two karts go off in turn one, you come out of turn 16 and you look and you just see two karts sitting in the wall off of one. You're going to drive a little bit different into one. And unfortunately, with these karts, they're all about momentum, and you kind of can't afford to be safe. You have to push the entire time. So whatever it is that caused that moment there into turn one for two karts, neither of them are going to be happy. And, well, if you're Langley or Ocasio, you've got a long way to build things back through on your weekend. You can see here looking around, adjusting the engine a little bit there for the kart in picture coming through turn one. And, well, checkered flag has fallen on this session.
Charlie Steins, top of the board, 56.531 over Nikolai Dukov. And Haddock the third in third position at the moment, fitting for the name. Lyda currently yet to cross the line, but William Richard, who's also in this class, is down in 9th. Jeff Carroll stayed in 11th. Fred Robertson does jump his way into the 4th position with a 58 flat over Jeff Lyda's 58.1. So most of these pro shifters finishing up with no issues in their qualifying session. Outside of the big names that had huge problems like Ocasio to start the session, that's going to be a driver to watch for that 214. It's going to be flying through the pack later on today.
Yeah, Ocasio will be a driver on a mission once we get the racing underway later here. Pre-final, of course, for these shifter carts. Not for a couple of hours, but when it does come through, Ocasio, I can already tell you, between Ocasio and Langley, those are going to be the two that I'm really going to have to watch. And there's a cart coming extremely slow into the pits. Who is that? I think that might have been Jeff Carroll or Mitchell Lowry.
Couple drivers keeping it nice and calm before they go on in. TKG's once those coming on through as one of the drivers tests out their starts real quick in the gears before they roll into the pit lane. Everybody else coming on down, including the 00 Doug Hoff. I believe that might have been who is in 6th position. So 6 drivers all in the under 1 minute club in Pro Shifter. Have just one more class to go. It's going to take a little bit of cleanup here for what happened down on the front straightaway into turn 1. Why don't we take a step aside and allow these drivers to get the cleanup going. Then when we come back, it'll be the final qualifying group of the day, the KA100 seniors, coming up after track cleanup here from MCC, Cincinnati.
DPK Americas is bridging the gap between the U.S. and the 2-time world champion DPK Alonso Kart factory team in Europe.
In partnership with Team Binnick, they offer drivers a complete career path from the Americas to Europe that allows them to continue their driver development on both sides of the world, all underneath the DPK umbrella.
For more information, contact DPK Americas at max@drivensm.com to take the next step in your driver development journey today.
Are you ready to get behind the wheel? From Formula One to NASCAR and IndyCar, all the pros start here. For more information, check us out online at mcckarting.com or call us and go racing today.
Hey, what's up, Caleb?
What's up, Brandon?
You sound defeated. A long day at the office?
Yeah, got stuck at a cat food marketing meeting for like 3 hours. I don't know a thing about cat food, and I don't even work in marketing. And then I got sent on a coffee run like I was some sort of intern. Then at the end of the day, when I went to go get gas, I just realized everything is so darn expensive nowadays, man.
Yeah, you got that right.
Like, do you have any idea how much we're spending on Netflix?
It's like $20 a month.
Do you know how much we're spending on cable?
That's like $50 a month.
But you know what isn't expensive?
Tell me.
Kart Chaser Premium. For only $9.99 a month, you can watch all of the American karting action live from coast to coast. Subscribe and become a member today.
Karts are back on the racetrack as we get set for our final grouping of drivers. It's the KA100 seniors that close out our qualifying sessions. We have an opportunity to take a bit of a breather before we go racing behind the paywall. Remember, Be sure to join as a member here for Kart Chaser if you want to join up and watch the action for the pre-finals and finals here today. So first things first, K100 Senior earlier today in practice. Will Steele led the way in the session with a time 4/10 quicker than the nearest competitor, Carter Thompson. Jacob Petticord also was quick, remember, earlier today when we tuned in earlier for the broadcast window. As well, who's the defending champion when it comes to the series? Well, it's a quite simple question when you look at things in terms of Pro-Am. It's Carter Thompson that got the edge by 36 points. 2024 over Will Steele. It's going to get interesting to see how things go in 2025 here, Brad.
Yeah, 2025 is going to shape up to be very competitive. That's the one thing I've kind of gotten all the way through. Looking at warm-up times, looking at everything. This is going to be such a competitive session to watch here. Going through, Carter Thompson, the defending champion, was only second fastest in warm-up by about, or second fastest in warm-up, off by about 4/10. First laps are being registered here as we go through, and it is Braden Heber in the 9.78, who's only about a 10th and a half up. This is going to be the class to watch all the way through the year, all the way through the weekend. This is the class where I expect the most competition. Shifters get wild, but these guys just throw the elbows out, sling the carts around, a little bit of drifting here and there, just getting the most you can get out of a cart through the weekend. It's going to be anyone in this class that you have to watch. This is where the battles, this is where the heartbreak, this is where the victory will come in. And of course, this is called the Pro-Am Karting Championship, and this is the senior, aka Pro-Am class. So if there's anyone to watch, it's going to be this one.
It's going to be fun to see who comes on top of this one. Braden Heber, again in this class too, is top of the board for now, but it's only the first time around for these drivers. Lots of teammates in a line. Will Steele, Carter Thompson both jump up. Steele to the 101.8 to take over the pole time for the time being. Steele, we mentioned his speed showcased earlier on today in the final warm-ups and the final practices earlier today. It's going to be interesting what happens today. Steele Motorsports, top of the board so far. So, Jacob Petticord seems to be in the other pack of note here too, Brad. That's going to be something to watch for as time progresses. Is that second pack as well that's going to be about half a track back for some of these competitors.
Yeah, Petticord is running there in the mix with Tyler Prestel is the next cart with him that I see in the 988 of James Geist is running around as well in that second pack. This first pack is very close together. You see a little bit of tucking going on there from the Ryan Miller going through. And this is going to be the interesting thing. You know, we're going down just 35 seconds left to go in qualifying. Who's going to land where on the track? Who will get the final laps in? Who will get kind of the last hurrah to go across? Because Carter Thompson, Braden Heber have now jumped through. So you're seeing that pack. As one pack goes through, they find a time, and then the other pack is responding. So who will run across the line last? Only 18 seconds left to go. Petticord now back up into second.
A lot of curbing being taken by the front pack as this will be the final time around for these drivers, looks like here, based on the marks. Will there be any change amongst these teammates up around the racetrack? Carter Thompson currently top of the board, currently wants the second driver in line at the moment behind. Here's to be Steele. Will there be any change? Steele falling down the order quickly. Steele top of the board, 101.1. He sets the pole time for now by 2/10, but it's still going to be some time before Petticord comes around the track to confirm it.
Yeah, Petticord coming through just now, coming into turn 16, the final turn. So Petticord will be coming down the back straight behind the 971, or the front straight of Shane Hambrick. Shane Hambrick 11th, Petticord only 6th place when it's all said and done. So Petticord has pace in that cart, would be one to watch through the race. Qualifying doesn't always kind of tell the story, but certainly if you can qualify up front, it always does help.
track position matters. And especially here, it's going to be very critical to be able to get away from some of the battles early on that we expect in this one. So qualifying finishes up here once again. KA 100 senior qualifying concludes with the running order on the left side of your screen at the moment. Steele over Brandon Hebert. Carter Thompson finished off in third. Ben Lida in fourth. Ryan Miller in fifth. Jacob Petticord, sixth position. Addison Ianello also finishes up in the seventh spot. Tyler Presto and Gary should say, in the ninth position. Isaac Gardner in 10th spot. Shane Hambrick finishes off in 11th, with 12th going to Marcus Batsoon. Lucas and James Geist round out the running order for K100 Senior qualifying. That's what top to bottom at the running order here in this one. Michael Maker, the last drivers who did not show on that board. So on that note, Brad, it's time to take a step aside. When we come back in a little bit, we'll be behind the paywall here from MCC Cincinnati. Pre-final action coming up at approximately noon. We'll see you then here on Kart Chaser.